All right, we're here today with Julia Salata, Director of Operations at Princeton University, Boys and Girls, Girls Wrestling Club and Boys Wrestling Team. This is the third year in a row we've had her in for a camp here. As you can see, we have an array of boys and girls here today, from all the way from state finalists and Whitfield champs to first-year wrestlers. And so I'm going to ask her just a few short questions here today, just to pick her brain. First question will be, since they're in the room today, what advice would you give to a high school athlete, maybe a junior high athlete that's planning on not only maybe wrestling at the next level, but going to college, even just academically, or playing perhaps another sport at the next level? Maybe give them a couple words of advice about the recruiting process, things that they should be thinking of along that journey.
So I think obviously you're called student athletes, right? So it's being able to manage academics and athletics and learning that in definitely high school, if not sooner, if that's what you're thinking of long term. Especially somewhere like Princeton, academics are super important. You gotta get it first and foremost. But even once you get into college, in order to compete, you gotta stay eligible, just like in high school. So learning to manage those two things and do it well. One of the things that attracted me to Princeton is that the kind of kids that come to Princeton are also the kind of athletes that I want to coach. They're kids that want to challenge themselves, that want to see the best out of themselves, and aren't afraid to step up to that challenge, again, academically or athletically. So I think in the recruiting process, something that you always want to talk to coaches about are what your academic goals are as well. Telling coaches, like, what do you want to major in? If you don't know yet, that's okay. But say, like, I'm undecided yet, I want to take a couple classes and see what interests me. At the high school level, challenge yourself, right? Don't be afraid to take an AP class. Don't be afraid to take an honors class. One that's going to look good on a transcript. It's going to show a college coach that you like to challenge yourself, okay? And it's going to, again, help you explore your options, right? Get used to AP credits, things like that going to college. So, like, I'm not saying, like, overwhelm yourself and stress yourself out taking a bunch of hard classes, but don't be afraid to step to that challenge of taking an AP, right? The skills that you're learning in the classroom translate into wrestling, discipline, accountability, autonomy, things like that. So when you're talking to coaches, like, they understand that, like, you want the best out of yourself. There's nothing more attractive to me in an athlete than someone that likes to step up to the plate and be the one to take a swing, you know what I mean? Swing for the fences. When you're being recruited, don't think that because you're not getting phone calls that you're not wanted at college. Right now, especially on the women's side, on the men's side, there are how many hundreds of colleges that offer women's wrestling and all involve these slots to fill, and a lot of times don't even know where to start, right? They don't know that there's a girl in PA that plays during the state tournament that wants a place to wrestle. Maybe they're a West Coast school that's been recruiting primarily out of out of California, and they need a 109 pounder, there's nowhere to go to. They might not be looking at PA. So every single school, men's and women's wrestling, has a recruiting form on their website. Okay? Fill out that recruiting form right away, those coaches will see that. Within 48 hours of sending that recruiting form, follow up to those coaches in an email. Say, Coach, I'm so excited about your school. I was wondering if you saw my recruiting form. Here are my accolades, right? Athletic, academic, any extracurriculars you're doing. Follow up. I guarantee that coach will pick up his phone and give you a call. Because they have slots to fill, and there's, again, nothing more attractive than an athlete who's a go-getter. That took the time to fill out the recruiting form, and then also took the time to follow up with an email, right? That it shows maturity, and it shows, again, that go-getter attitude. With that, make sure that you come prepared to that first conversation with the coach, because there's nothing more unattractive than when I say, like, again, you reached out to me, you say, I'd love to go to Princeton, and I say, what attracted you to Princeton? You don't have an answer for me, right? Princeton, it's easy, academics. When I was at King University, what attracted you to King University? I don't know, right? Do your research. Go on their website, see what majors they offer, right? See where the campus is located. Is it close to, is it down south and you're looking forward to the weather? Do they have a history of putting people in professional positions that are coming out, right? Let's say you're a bio major and that school has a strong history of placing people in biology positions or getting kids into med school, whatever it may be, right? Again, that shows the coach, like, not only do you take time to fill out the form, but you really are interested in that school because you took the time to look into it, okay? And then find out what their athletic success is. Like, hey, why King University? Well, you won 4 straight national titles. Why Princeton University? Well, last year you had a national champion in Pat Glory, or you have a 100% retention rate. Like, find out something that shows why you're interested, and that's going to speak to that coach. So I think just in terms of getting recruited, those are some of the best advice I can give. Like, know who your audience is and be able to speak to them, because that's what's going to make that coach give you a second phone call, offer you a scholarship, bring you out for a visit, whatever it may be. But again, initiating contact, don't be afraid to do it. It goes a long way. And be persistent. Be persistent. Test them. And this is for any sport, not just wrestling. But I can speak to the wrestling side. So you guys are football guys, same thing applies. Ideally, you should wrestle. It's better, but we're a little bit of elitists too in that regard. We think we're better than everybody, and it's because we are. But so I think that's the biggest thing towards getting recruited. The transition itself, again, start learning to manage your time now. Being a student athlete in high school is hard. Being a student athlete in college is even harder. You're away from home, mom and dad aren't holding your hand as much, they're not holding you accountable. You have to learn to do it on your own. Start using a daily planner, get a Google Calendar, right? Figure all this stuff out so when you get to college, you're ready to go. You're ready to manage that schedule, you're ready to manage that workload, and you're ready to excel, right? The athletic demand is higher, right? You're doing 2-a-days now instead of 1-a-days. You're traveling and missing class on Thursday, Friday sometimes, or maybe even on a Wednesday, you're not gonna be in class. Learn to build relationships with your professors. Don't just be a kid in the classroom who they see 3 times a week, right? One of the things we used to do at King, every Friday, we used to have our athletes shake the hand of their professors and say thank you for a great week of class, right? Because that built a connection with the professors. If they were saying thank you, one, it showed gratitude, right? Thank you for being my teacher today. Thank you for putting up with me when I'm not here later in the season and helping me out. But it gave them name recognition. Those professors that we had kids making those connections with came out to all of our dual meets because they knew who the wrestlers were. There was one professor that had like 8 wrestlers in his class at one point, and after so many weeks of he was actually a first year professor. After so many weeks of having all of these wrestlers shake his hand, one funny thing happened is that a bunch of the other kids in the class thought that's what they were supposed to do. So after week 3, it was no longer just the wrestlers doing it; it was everybody in the class doing it because oh shoot, this is what we're supposed to do in this guy's class. So they started doing it. But this guy was also what's going on with these wrestlers? I got to go see what they're like on the mat. He didn't miss a dual meet again the rest of the year. Start with your teachers now if you want to, but just building community at your college is going to go a long way when you're trying to manage academics and athletics. Build relationships with your professors. I think with the transition itself, wrestling is always wrestling, right? A lot of things that I showed today to kind of tie it back into the technique that we talked about. We think that as we get better at wrestling or move up in the ranks, whether it's going from JV to varsity, varsity to college, being a college second stringer guy to being the starter, that suddenly there's this change in how wrestling works, right? And yes, wrestling's evolving with scrambling, with top-bottom wrestling, right? Top right now, people using that near ankle ride. People are learning how to game the system all the time, but the basics are still what matters. You watch the World Championships, the best wrestlers are the ones who maintain position, they have solid leg defense, they're not just trying to do crazy stuff all the time, and they stick to fundamentals, right? What we talked about today, yes, their super ducks are super cool and misdirection low singers are super cool, but what's winning the most matches? Go behinds, short offense, right? Taking advantage of someone's mistake that took a bad shot, ending up in short offense, or being a really good hand fighter, snapping them into a front headlock, right? The basics is what wins matches. You can start learning the cool stuff, right, once you are pretty good, but what's going to win at the highest level when you're in the NCAA finals, right, is who can maintain position for 6 or 7 minutes, right? Who can have the best sprawl, not who can leg pass the most, roll around their back and hope they don't get put in danger, you know what I mean? Just remember wrestling, all the things that you're learning today in this clinic are going to apply in Division I wrestling. Things you're going to learn in your high school season are going to apply in Division I wrestling. They're going to apply to the World Championships. They don't get so caught up in I always have to be, I shouldn't say always have to be evolving, you should always be seeking to get better, but you don't need to learn a new takedown every week, right? When you get to, I wrestled for 10 years on the senior level, I made the U.S. national team, I won a world medal at the University World Championships. I had 3 really good takedowns, right? I had go-to, I had a secondary takedown, and I had a last-ditch effort, right? Not that I didn't have other stuff that I would hit occasionally, but I stuck to those 3 things and I did them very, very well. So now looking at college wrestling, don't forget what got you to college wrestling in the first place. Okay, they'll build on your style, they'll take care of that stuff, but don't get so caught up in always having to learn something new. Just continue to evolve and get better in general at what already works. Once you get there, obviously there's going to be a shift in mentality, right? Guys are better than you, especially guys that are used to being the best kid in your room or the best kid in the league or the best kid in the state. The chances are, unless you are a freak, unless you're Kyle Dake or Yanni Giacomo or Aaron Brooks or Carter Savachi, you're going to get to college and you're not going to be the best guy in your room. You might not even be the best guy in your weight class, and that's okay. What's important is that you don't get discouraged. It's really easy to get there and be whoa, what's happening here? And that's okay, because that means that you're always going to get pushed every day, right? Every day, set micro goals for yourself, right? That guy that's the number 1 guy in the team took you down 3 times, okay. Next week your goal is to get taken out 2 times. Next week your goal is to take you out 1 time. But maybe it's getting to his legs, right? Maybe you only took him down once all week. Take him down twice next week. Take him down 3 times next week, right? Defend his number one attack, right? Setting those micro goals, so rather than getting discouraged because you're not beating him, right? How can you start closing that gap? And over time, it's gonna go from closing the gap to being the guy or being the girl. So it's just keeping a mentality of like, this is actually a good thing for me that I'm not the best in him because I'm getting challenged, getting pushed to get better. Because then when you are the guy or you are the girl, what the heck is that person across the map from you when you're already being the best guy? In college, my drill partner, my first 2 years was Allie Reagan, 2-time world silver medalist, 6-time world team member. And again, I went from being a 3-time Fargo champion in high school to having to fight just for a starting spot. I actually ended up having to go up a weight class because I couldn't beat her. But I ended up being the number 1 seed in the national tournament my freshman year because I was going with Allie Reagan every day. Who the heck was I going to wrestle that was better than Allie Reagan? Nobody. So I just rose to the challenge. I tried to get 1% better, as cliche as that sounds, every single day, until I was the person, and then I won a national title. And then Allie won a world silver medal, but then I was on the team right next to her. You know what I mean? So like, rise to that challenge. Don't be discouraged by it. Like, see everything as an opportunity, and just try to get a little bit better every day until you are that person. Academically, same thing. Classes are going to be harder, right? You're not going to get the best, as good of grades as you did, most likely, your first week of college, right? You're learning how to manage this new schedule. Just keep getting better. Colleges, more often than not, have a million resources. Okay? I can't speak to every college. I haven't been at every campus, but most colleges have way more resources available to you than you did in high school. They have tutoring centers. They have writing centers. They have professors who are willing to come in on a Tuesday night to come work with you. At King, because we were a smaller school, it wasn't uncommon for professors to like bake fresh cookies and like have study sessions on Thursday nights with their kids. And that's where most women's wrestling schools right now are smaller schools with like very small student-teacher ratios. So you're gonna have those kinds of relationships with your professors, right? With the exception of like right now, Iowa and Lindenwood and like Sacred Heart, you're gonna have small class sizes no matter what. And that was honestly the best thing for me as a student athlete because there were more eyeballs on me and it held me accountable. Especially when I was traveling with the national team, there was a semester I was gone like 8 weeks out of 14 of the semester, and that was one of the best GPAs I ever had because I was spending so much time getting extra help outside of the classroom, right? I was in class the days that I could be, but I was also going out of my way to be like, hey, I'm sorry I missed class all of last week, but like, here I am in your office for your office hours, and I was getting one-on-one attention for 2 hours a week just doing that. With that, also make sure that you're really staying on top of like all the little things, right? Managing your social schedule, right? In college, you're alone for the first time. Like, remember the first 3 things that are most important are school and academics. Not that you shouldn't have a social life, but there are a lot of ways to easily get distracted in college that aren't productive, especially with wrestling and managing your weight and making sure that you're just using your time wisely. Don't let distraction get to you, right? Keep your horse blinders on as much as you can, for sure. So that's what I was gonna make about office hours, something like that, but I can't remember it right now. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. And enjoy it, right? College wrestling is only available to a very small percentage of the population. College athletics in general, love the process, right? Love being there, and that you get to actually pursue wrestling beyond just your high school years. Right? I wrestled until I was a couple months shy of 29 years old, and I still feel like I didn't get enough time. But I love the time that I did have, so I think that's super, super important. I wish I could remember. I had a point about something about office hours. I can't remember what it is now. I'll come back to it if I think of it.
Anyway, wow, to me that was some incredible insight, and I know, some of them are a little forward thinking and definitely challenge themselves, and so I'm sure they felt the same way I did about what you just said. And I felt like not only was it incredible insight, but it was like kind of from an insider, right? Someone who's walking that walk. I'm going to keep it to just one more question because I think this is important. Just an interest time. They've been here a long time today. So I would like to, like I mentioned before, like maybe talk about a low moment in your career wrestling and how you overcame that challenge to get beyond that or past that or above that. So a low moment maybe in your career.
I'll talk about 2 of them.
Yep.
One was something, I guess they're both things that were out of my control, but affected my career differently. The first one was 2016 Olympic trials. I was kind of in prime position to make the team. I had beaten everyone in my weight class. I felt good going into the year. I just moved to the Olympic Training Center. I was at a prime age, and I tore my MCL about 6 weeks out from competition. The Dave Schultz tournament, I had been overtraining, honestly, and I just got positioned. I was in a backside single position. I had her elevated. I was about to finish. She picked my toe up, and as I turned in to finish, she pulled my heel out, and my knee just slipped. I finished actually 2 more matches. I won, and then I was like, I got to pull out of this. Like I had to kind of put toughness on the back burner. Think about like Olympic trials were 6 weeks out. And I was out for like 5 weeks of it. And then the last week going into trials, I was like, I gotta get on the mat. Like, I gotta do something. I wasn't cool. I was like able to wrestle, but I wasn't 100%. But I was like, I just gotta train. I won my first 2 matches. In the semifinals, I had Tamara Mensah, who I had beaten twice to that point. I think I was 2-1 against her all time. I had the most recent win. And I couldn't get it done, right? She ended up winning 10-0, so technical ball and freestyle. And I was like humiliated. Like I planned on making the team with someone that I had never, maybe I hadn't lost her yet at that point. No, I had. I once. I was 2-1 against her, and I had the last win. And then she just beat the snot out of me because I just couldn't wrestle to my full potential. And it was like I was so bitter because I felt so good mentally, but I was like this way. I go to go through the 5 stages of grief. It was like I was in like denial. Like this shouldn't have happened. Like I was able to acknowledge that it was because I was hurt, but like the fact that you train, when I'm looking at the Olympics, you're looking at a 4-year cycle, that I trained 4 years just to have some fluky thing happen 6 weeks out was like devastating to me. Like that, the fact, had I just lost, period, like had I lost 3-2 and like nothing else was wrong, I could have almost accepted that. Like she was better today. But it was something that was out of control that happened that I was like, dude, what the heck? So I cried about it for a really long time in the back hallway. I came back, I won my next consolation match, but Tamara went on to make the team in 2016. She ended up not qualifying the weight, but she won Olympic trials. And I was like, man, that should have been me. And coincidentally enough, I wrestled her again about 6 weeks after that at Canada Cup. That time I had healed fully, and I beat her 4-4 on criteria. So that honestly kind of like added to the resentment. Like again, like had I just lost, or had she beat me again when I wasn't 100%, I could have been like, oh well, you know what I mean? Oh well, she was just better. But the fact that I beat her, I was almost more mad. Because I was like, I should have done this 6 weeks ago, right? I knew I was capable of this. And then the insult to injury even further than that is we go to the Olympics. We both actually ended up going. I was a training partner for Adeline Gray. Tamira was a partner for Elena Pierskova. And again, Tamira didn't qualify the weight, so she was just there as a training partner. So I had to sit in the stands, and the girl that won a bronze medal at my weight was a girl from Kazakhstan who I had beaten at Junior Worlds the year before. 2 years prior, something like that. So I was like, not only should I have made the team, had I been out there, I probably would have qualified the weight, and then I probably would have won a medal. And at that point, I was kind of like, I don't even know if I want to wrestle anymore. Like, I was just so devastated. I was like, I don't know if this is really for me. Like, the fact that you can work so hard for a 4-year cycle, to have it taken away from you like that because of something that was out of your control, like, the thought of going through 4 more years was like, dude, like, can I go through this again just to be devastated again? Like, I don't know. So I was sitting in the stands at the Olympics, and my college coach was there. One of my teammates who made the team, Haley Agello. And while we were sitting in the stands, he offered the assistant coaching job to me at King. Again, I was in the training center at the time. He's like, hey, our assistant coach just left. My assistant coach, he's like, do you want to come back and coach? And I was like, dude, let's do it. Like, I want to coach. And in those first couple weeks of coaching, while I was in this thing, I'm like, I think I'm going to retire. I think I'm out of this now. I was talking about that, watching that girl win a bronze medal. And he's like, what would you regret more? Saying, I don't know if I can deal with this again and deal with the devastation again? Or think to yourself, like, man, that could be me. I can win an Olympic medal, right? Would you rather regret not trying, or would you rather regret saying, like, I put all that work in for nothing? And I was like, you're right. Like, I would sure as shit rather go out there and give it one more shot, one more 4-year cycle, to at least say that I didn't live with the regret of, like, I could have been an Olympic medalist, but. So I kind of, like, licked my wounds a little bit and got back out there and started training again. And that next 1.5-year long cycle was the best 1.5 years of my entire competitive career. I won the US Open. I was on the US World Cup team. I actually ended up getting concussed the final. I competed in the first ever final X at Lehigh and getting concussion there, but I was on a tear. Again, it's out of my control, but I was on a tear. To the point where I felt like I was the best girl in the world. Going into the next Olympic trial. So I was so glad that I came back, because that was the best wrestling I ever did. Coming back, kind of with a chip on my shoulder. Like, I'm here for a reason now. Which kind of leads into the second moment. So that was my first one where I kind of came back, put myself up my stress, came back. So all of this leads into number 2.